Hello, my name is Scott Rogers, and today I'm going to show how to use Tanzu Observability by Wavefront to observe your OpenShift clusters. Tanzu Observability has more than 200 pre-built integrations, including everything from cloud providers to DevOps tools, other monitoring tools, alerting platforms, OSs, communication systems, and if you don't see integration here, we also support direct data ingestion via different means and webhooks for alerting other systems about things going on. All of this allows for correlating data from disparate systems to really understand root cause and reduce service interruptions. Now let's look at the OpenShift integration. Notice when I clicked on the OpenShift title, it brought me to the Kubernetes integration. This is because Tanzu Observability treats clusters just like any other Kubernetes cluster. This is important, especially in a multi-cloud environment, as we can view the health of the cluster along with our other clusters. This goes the same for the apps and services running on those clusters. This is really important because it allows the operators to see things in context of the other systems running their estate. The Kubernetes integration comes with a set of dashboards. Most people use these as a starting point for creating their own dashboards that fit their unique needs. In this tenant, we're collecting Kubernetes metrics from several different flavors of Kubernetes, including Kubernetes on EKS, Kubernetes on bare metal in a home lab, and Kubernetes on an OpenShift cluster in the UK. Now let's look at what it'll take to set up Kubernetes or set up this integration. The install for both Kubernetes on a Tanzu cluster and Kubernetes pretty much everywhere else is a Helm chart executed from the command line. So pretty simple to install. The same is true for the OpenShift cluster. It can be installed from the command line. It can also be installed from the OpenShift console. So let's go see what that looks like. Okay, so we're in our OpenShift console. We're logging in as the administrator, which will allow us to create a project in which we can install the Tanzu Observability Helm chart. So we create a project and we give it a name. This first name is a Kubernetes namespace name, and the second name is a display name for managing this project here within the OpenShift console. Once the project is created, we can switch our role over to the developer, and from there we'll install the Helm chart. Now here's the developer. We can see we're in the same project, so we click on Helm. No Helm charts are currently installed, so we click on Install One from the developer catalog. We can scroll down and we can find the Wavefront tile here, or we could also search for it and find it the same way. Once we find it, we click on it, and if you'll notice on the right here towards the bottom, there's actually instructions on how to install this via Helm, but we're going to use the console itself. So click on Install Helm Chart, and that takes us to a screen where we can then give it a release name. This release name is a Helm release name you would see if you use the Helm command from the command line. And then we're going to make 3 changes to the YAML file. We're going to update the cluster name, and then we'll update the API token and the URL. In this case, this cluster name is a descriptive name that you'll see in Tanzu Observability. So give it something that helps you understand your business. In this case, I'm naming it OpenShift Demo Cluster UK03. Now we'll scroll to the bottom where we will update our API token and then update the URI or URL so we hit the right cluster or right tenant. So the API token, we're going to get that from Tanzu Observability, from our API access, where we can just copy that here. Once we copy it to clipboard, we're going to go back over to OpenShift and paste that in here. And if you're watching this, don't worry, this API key has been revoked. Now we're going to go back over to 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 see where to get our URL, which you can see it in the URL line. You can also see it there in that curl command. In this case, I'm on a cluster called Longboard, so I'm going to update that here with Longboard. I'm going to click install, and now we can watch the progress of the Helm chart installing. So the Kubernetes Integration Helm chart will install a collector for each node in your cluster, and it will install a proxy that will actually take that data from the collectors and send it to Tanzu Observability. You can see here on the right we got three nodes, we got 3 collectors. You can view the logs for the collectors. I usually don't. I find the logs for the collectors not be as meaningful. I really like to go look at the logs for the proxy, because what will happen is if there's any kind of issues with configuration, whether it's the API key or the URL or anything else, you'll typically get some sort of like 400 or 401 error right here. We don't see that kind of error here, so we're good to go. So let's go over and look at this now in Tanzu Observability. So now we're back in Tanzu Observability, and we're going to take a look at some of the dashboards that come with the integration. We can start with the Kubernetes summary, and that's going to give us a summary of all the clusters that are sending metrics to this particular tenant. In this case, we see we have 3 clusters. If I come up here, I might see some more because of timing issues, but again, you can see several different types of clusters that are sending data. And I'm going to go back, and I'm going to change the time picker here to go back to a previous time frame where my OpenShift cluster was still sending data. And here I'm going to see, I can choose my OpenShift demo cluster, and we can see that that information coming in looks just like the other Kubernetes clusters. Again, this is important, especially in a multi-cloud environment, as this one is, because we're able to see across clusters, across clouds, again, regardless whether it's in a cloud or in a bare metal in your data center. And from here, we can dive in and see details about our clusters. If I select my OpenShift cluster, I can now dive in and see info about the nodes, for example. So now we're looking at the nodes for that particular cluster, and we see we have 3 nodes, and those nodes have a certain amount of health we can look at. We can also dive in and get deeper and look at the pods or containers running in that cluster. And by the way, notice a few things happen here as we navigated through our dashboards. I changed the time picker to a certain time frame, and that stayed consistent. And on the summary dashboard, I chose the OpenShift cluster, and that's followed us as well. And then from here, we could also choose namespace. And the idea behind showing you this is that you're able to navigate these dashboards in context. Again, this really helps understand what's going on, speed that correlation and that repair time to reduce your service interruptions. And all of these dashboards you've seen so far are provided out of the box with the integration, and they all have this lock symbol here, but the way we like to think about it, these are starting points for people where they can simply clone this dashboard and start creating dashboards that maybe meet their specific needs. In this environment, I've cloned a few of these dashboards and made a few small changes. Here's my clone of the Kubernetes summary dashboard. Not much different, but I've made some changes in some of the metrics. And all the widgets and charts you see here are all created using the Wavefront query language, which you can see that here. And this is pretty simple to use. You can use the Wavefront query language. You can also use PromQL, or you can use just a builder if you want to, where you can select the data that you want to see. In this case, it could be Kubernetes, and maybe we want to see Kubernetes cluster level information. And we're going to look at CPU across all that and see the usage rate. And there we go, look at that. So without, let me turn this one off. Without any code, we're able to, or without any coding of the query languages, we're able to simply also point and click our way to meaningful metrics that help us understand the health and value of our clusters. So that's the end of our demo. To learn more, visit tanzu.vmware.com/observability, where you can check out our documentation, read our blogs, and sign up for your own 30-day free trial. Thank you for watching.